Hey everyone, I'm Trebla, and this is Una Plática.
Una plática.
Una plática.
Es una plática.
Say plática.
Una plática. Una plática.
Myself, I think just having the experience of, seeing other people draw or be creative. I guess me and my dad have this conversation a lot. I guess in a way, he inspired me. We had a conversation not that long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, and he reminded me of this moment that that he remembers vividly of him, drawing at his work bench and me being like fascinated with those drawings. And, it was like this book that he would draw in. And I think, once he brought it up, I think that was one of my only times ever thinking of any of my family members drawing. And it was such like a short moment in my life that I kind of, I guess forgot about it. But my dad is pretty sure he inspired me to be an artist. But that moment wasn't so vivid for me until he reminded me about it. And so I like to say myself because I didn't really have any role models in the art scene. My parents weren't involved at all in the art community. And it wasn't until later in my life, after high school, where I, put myself in a position to be more involved. But, from my young adolescence up to, after high school, it was just doodling and kind of figuring things out on my own, putting pen to paper and throwing those things away. And so somehow in 2014, I decided that I was just going to go all in on this crazy dream. And here I am today. Man, it's like a mix of a lot of different things. Recently I learned a couple of years ago that my grandma's 100% Comanche. And so after learning that, it kind of put me in this like spiral of like, what is my culture? Things that I felt tied to through that experience of growing up, and then also like the yearning of these experiences that I've had growing up that I couldn't explain, and then learning later on as I'm much older in my life that like this is part of who I am, and things start to make a little bit more sense. And it's really weird. So like for me, this question is something that I kind of ask myself a lot of what is my culture. And there's this big, long history of, me as an individual, my family, and then also, the society's culture. And so I think I'm like a hybrid of a lot of different things. I had, my dad's side growing up on the west side, my mom's side on the south side. And so growing up, going to school at Lowell Middle School, I always like to share this like funny story that, it's on the borderline of west side and south side. And so growing up, going to school there and graduating from the near high school, I feel it's like a combination of the south side and west side culture, which is so vivid with, just hard work and getting things done and celebrating, the history of our ancestors, being able to be influenced by that, growing up and eventually learning that there's so much more that I wasn't necessarily a part of, but still experienced in these really beautiful ways without knowing, I was Native American. And it's just really weird and cool and beautiful on how, life works out. And so, yeah, my culture, I'm still asking myself that question, but I hope this answer makes sense to y'all. Man, there's like multiple people, and for like different reasons. And so, you know, my dad, you know, for, you know, just growing up the way he grew up, my mom, you know, they thinking about it now as an adult, as like their circumstances and how they raised me, it's like, you know, they did the best that they could do. And so for me, I really admire that, and it's taught me a lot and how to be a better, you know, father, husband, and in some way that's molded me into who I am today, you know, regardless of how difficult things were growing up. And so when it comes to like other aspects of my life, you know, creative voices, you know, Vincent Valdez is someone that I really admire. And, you know, growing up around the same area and being from the same city, you know, the way he uses his art to inspire people, but to also bring attention to you know, events and things that are happening in our neighborhoods, in our country, in our state. It's very admirable, and something that I kind of think about a lot is, you know, how I'm utilizing my art and my platform and my voice to say stuff through my work. And that's an ongoing challenge. But again, when you kind of see people like Vincent, and, you know, there's so many other creatives in this city that are just really amazing, and so many to name. I've just been really, really fortunate. And so like, I think I'm just inspired by so many people in my city, and it just like motivates me to work even harder and to just utilize my art for positive stuff. There was one that I just actually bought a painting. It was the boxing one. It was an exhibition about boxing. I forgot the name of it, but that was one of my favorite exhibitions that was put on here. And I was able to reconnect with a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and those are always like the really fun experiences. And if you're an artist, you know, when you attend a group exhibition, and you just like run into people that you haven't seen in years, and being able to reconnect and have those conversations, you know, it's always just really, really, you know, it's fun, but it's just, you know, seeing an old friend. You know, you just start from where you left off, and, you know, as creatives in San Antonio, it's like there's so many talented artists here, so it's always fun having this place as like a hub for like bringing people together and reconnecting, and all through art. Yeah, I think it's just super important, because yeah, as hubs in the community, especially in this day and age, in this generation of artists, you know, we see too many spaces closing down, and you know, for artists to utilize and bring community together, we need places like this more than ever now. You know, with the ever-changing landscape of the city, you know, places just being too expensive to partner with or utilize. Having spaces like this is just so important, because, you know, it gives opportunities for people who are starting off, and then also, again, utilizes opportunities to bring people together that maybe haven't seen each other in years, but all through art and community building. And so, if anything, we need more places like y'all, because, you know, we're a city of over 3 million people, and, you know, we need more. I would like to have people feel more inspired, you know, feel more positive of their situation in life. You know, I think we all have our own traumatic experiences that we maybe hold on to, and I feel sometimes we need to embrace that in a positive way, And my work, I like to say that it's all about like perspective. I could see a negative event in my life, and I could say, oh man, it's led me down this path. Or I could turn around and use that as a way to make more positive things happen in my life, but also how that affects other people's interactions with me. And so I feel with my art, I hope to have people like understand my perspective a little bit more of those traumatic experiences that could be turned into a positive, uplifting experience to make better, positive interactions and exchanges. And so I hope people can kind of take that and turn it into something for themselves. And so that's really what I want for my art. When people have like a tough time or a rough day, I hope that they can look at my art and be reminded of that story of resilience and wabi sabi. That's what my most popular series is about. It's just embracing the beauty and the imperfect. And so we're not perfect, and so I hope we can kind of take a look in the mirror, or take a look at my painting, and take a deep breath, and just realize that we have tomorrow, and we could start all over again. Yeah, so the first painting is, part of my Wabi Sabi series, the florals. And so this piece is a really interesting piece because I was doing a special commission for some of my good friends. And as I was finishing this one particular painting, I decided that it wasn't going to be the painting that was for them. There was just little things that I wanted to change, and even though the painting was 98% complete with maybe 3 days left on the deadline, I decided that I was just going to start all over again, and that I was going to reapproach that painting at another time. And so I did a whole new painting, similar to the composition you see, but also very different as far as color, and even the composition's different, but same flowers. But with this approach, eventually, I think it was like a month or two later, I was staring at it in my studio, and everything just hit me. The colors that I wanted to alter, and the presentation of the piece. I'm still working on the right frame for it. So this is the artwork without the frame, but right now I'm kind of trying to still figure out how I want to frame this piece. But it's actually one of my most favorite ones because there's a longer story behind it. But yeah, each flower was intended to represent the members of the family of my friends that I did this painting for. And so if you notice in the top left corner, the flower in the back's kind of hidden. And so that was one of the things that I was really conflicted by, was I wanted to bring that flower out more. And so rather than just painting over it, just decided to do a whole nother one for them and kind of keep this one. And so whenever you probably won't ever see these two paintings side by side, but at least I did. And so it was a really cool contrast, because they were similar, very slightly, but the connection between them was obviously there, but they were just so different. But just, yeah, that's what you see here in this photo. And the other piece is another exploration of a series that I'm working on. And so with this, I upcycle materials that I utilize in my studio practice. And so rather than throwing things away, I decided to, approach this idea with how do I utilize, these things that I would normally discard and make more art out of it. And so this is scraps, bougainvillea, or not bougainvillea, Bermuda is the name of this piece, like Bermuda grass. And so my son, he's actually allergic to different types of grass. And so I created this during like his soccer season. And I was thinking a lot about grass, because whenever he goes to play soccer, he comes back with all these like rashes and things that he has to deal with. But yeah, I was thinking about that while working in the studio and came up with this painting.